Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live stream of EverQuest's newest expansion, The Outer Brood. My name is Stephen Highland, and I am the brand manager for EverQuest. Today is actually a really awesome day because we are going to be able to dive into exclusive previews of the newest expansion. But more importantly, we'll be able to take a look at how it all came to be. So some of the things we're going to cover today is going to be zones, raids, new features, storylines, and more. So leading today's preview, actually, they're here over to my right, is Adam Bell, design manager, Alan Vancouvering, principal game designer, and Kevin Leidy, lead artist. Now, before I fully hand it over to them, please stay tuned to the end where we will have some really cool new swag to show off. And also, please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we will try to answer them towards the end. Now, I'm going to hand it over to them to kick it off. Thanks, everyone.
Howdy. Well,
Hey.
The Outer Brood is coming.
Cool. I'm Alan, if you didn't know. Oh, my name's on the screen. Never mind. You know who I am.
But anyway, so remember way back when in Claws of Vishon,
Oh, yeah.
we,
When,
yeah.
So when Vulak decided that he had enough of mortals and their shenanigans, and decided he was going to call out to Vishon and see if she would come back and fix everything for him. Prompted by another figure in EQ lore who wanted her to come back in order to get rid of himself. He sent out a signal into the ether. Ether's probably not the right word, but into space. And he was answered eventually, today, or next month anyway, by a force he had not expected. And the Norathians have come to call them the Outer Brood, as the name of the expansion hints. And we're I don't know. What else do you want to say something about? Okay, I want to talk about the Norathian dragons for a second here. So, Norathian dragons are were placed here, obviously, by Vishon a while ago, and they have effectively lost their dominance over Norath, which is disappointing to them, and is part of the reason why Vulak was prompted to call for help. Our new dragons, however, did not have that problem on their homeworld. They dominated it completely, and have come here to find out what their cousins are like, and initially came here to greet them and say hi, and discovered how pathetic they were, and have decided that the Norathian dragons really don't deserve their planet, and they're going to take it and put it to rights, as it were. That's the main overview of the expansion, in brevity, I suppose.
All right, Kevin,
You ready
you
to
want
move
to show
on?
us some of the
Kick it
zones?
over, Zone.
Yeah, cool. Well,
I-
it's
Clearly not professional at this.
it's my pleasure to show you some of the cool stuff the team's been working on. And before we look at anything, I wanted to just give you a little peek behind the curtain and talk about the process a little bit. You know, the Outer Brood was kind of an unusual expansion for us. We did a ton of prototyping and a lot of proof of concept work long before any of the real production began. And it always comes down to simple things, and it came down to something as simple as just a reptilian scale shape that Alan Bond created that could deform properly and retain its spirit, and then a little wall section that was super cool that Shannon Parnell did. And it's from those that a lot of these zones were where they start. You know, my worry in this was that because so many of the zones are kind of interrelated or, you know, beside each other, that we would run into continuity problems. You know, you get a lot of people poking at something and you're going to get a whole bunch of different ideas. So the way we worked around that was we really just ramped up the communication. The environment team every Wednesday gets together and runs through, and we have what we call show and tells that everybody talks, shows and tells what they've been working on for a week. And there was so much synergy in those conversations that another question that comes up a lot is, well, you know, what are the inspirations? Well, a lot of the inspirations really came out of the team. They came out of those show and tells, and somebody would see one thing in one zone and go, "Oh, that's great. Well, we'll do that here." So it's almost like the continuity took care of itself. Just a lot of there's so much cross pollination. It was really fun to be a part of. And so that's where we start. And if I can walk and chew gum at the same time, we'll look at some of that stuff. Let's start off in Hodstock Hills. That was done by our esteemed Brad Saliga, and we're here in the Halfling Village now. And he obviously was influenced, as you said, by Lord of the Rings architecture. And we see that in various places here. If I could just sneak by here, I think there's more up here. But I know you read one of the books, and like all of us, who read the books, you sort of project what you think those things are like. And so much of this is just that circular shape language. It's not angular or any of that kind of thing. So that was our cool first stop on the ground. Let's move over to Mulan's Reach. And this is a really cool area. So the design document called for one of the more familiar spires that you'll see here. But in addition to that probably looks familiar to everybody. In addition to that, Brad wanted to bring in some, classic fantasy type wizard tower stuff. And I know he based a lot of the shape language off of RPG miniatures. Presumably his weren't busted up, but like he said, one of the big challenges was how much to bust it up and still keep the original spirit. So that's Mulan's Reach, and we'll move on to one other place here. It's a really cool place. This is Shark Fortress, and we will come up into the fortress here, and there's just some super cool architecture in here. Brad is one of those people that is very thoughtful in his research, and so he found this 17th century Indian fort. I'm going to mess up the name, so it's Murad Jajira. And so a lot of this is based on this 17th century fort in India. And there's lots of cool architecture here. Hodstock Hills is a very large zone. In fact, when we were peer testing these, one of the other guys who'd been peer testing it pretty much all day, he's typing to the chat channel. He's like, "I can't believe how big this zone is. I can't believe how big this." And then, funny, at one point he just writes back in all caps, "Oh no, not a cave system too." So it's a big zone. Okay, maybe that's an inside joke. We'll skip those.
I get it. I don't know if anybody else will.
All right, so let's move on to Theater of Eternity.
Where I was zoning, I wanted to say a few things about Hodstock Hills.
Okay, we go back. You want to go back?
No, you're
Okay.
good. While you're zoning. And Hodstock Hills was based off of actually EverQuest Online Adventures zones. There were actually 4 zones in that sort of got put together into one big zone for this expansion. I also want to say one more thing. Can we go to the
Back to Hodstock?
picture?
Oh, yeah, the deck.
Yeah, one thing that we wanted to be clear is this big Leviathan back here in the picture. It is a Leviathan. It is gargantuan. It has this city on the back of it. And if you look really closely, you can see windows. This big dragon in front can fly through the windows without folding its wings. That's how big that Leviathan is. And that's what brought all the dragons to Norath.
Yeah, and in fact, everything you'll see from here on is on that Leviathan.
Right.
Yeah, it's on or
In, yeah.
Yeah. So right now we're on the Leviathan's back in Theater of Eternity, or TOE, as it became known at the office. This is some of Shannon Parnell's work, and there's just so much cool stuff going on here.
So the story of Hodstock Hills, you start out there, correct, and then you move your way into the Theater of Eternity, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the story behind kind of following that path?
Oh, we can get into that.
You get into that later. Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is what my notes are about.
So Shannon said that, and you could, if you kind of blur your eyes and I don't know, maybe you've had a adult beverage, you could kind of see it. But he says that
When if you're not.
that that a lot of this was based on World War II movies, and you know these really interesting little details here. You could kind of see some of that influences, especially, you know, we usually see the zone without population in it, so little bits and pieces, they sort of stand out more. We can go to the training section here.
Oh, that is literally my corpse.
That is literally
Don't
right
turn
there.
around.
Okay. And it has a really classic feel to it. He said that he looked at a lot of martial arts training movies when he was working on this, and you could kind of see that, but I see it as the stadium here always had these banners that surrounded it. And so as I walk into these areas and I can kind of see the curvature of them, I feel like I'm back at the stadium at a Chargers game back in the days when we actually had a football team. So it's kind of cool.
Bitter.
Bitter? Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. All right, so let's go to the reflecting pool.
I do want to say that writing his own document and then having these guys do something with it is one of my favorite things.
Oh,
I love writing something that go, they'll never figure this out, and then there it is.
here's that $50.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. It's like, oh yeah, and I want there to be dragon scales for the floor. There they are.
Here we are at the reflecting pond. You know, this war-torn zone has this one nice little peaceful spot in it. And this Jessica Wilkinson did. And she said, I just, as war-torn as that place was, she said, I just wanted to make a place where I'd feel comfortable sitting down and reading a book. So I think, I could see her sitting there reading a book. All right, Feet of Eternity. Let's move on to Aureate Covert. And away we go. I have to move to another one. There it is. Okay.
And this is sort of through that wall back behind in the backdrop of this
Yeah, that's
image.
the front face of the covert. And I have to say that some of the shape languages and stuff here are really amazing. You're there.
They were there. So here we are at Aureate Covert. And we'll go inside here. This is kind of, Alan Bond did this, and he explained this in his usual, awfully humble way, but he described it as the place that explains what's going on to support the battle. So there's all kinds of, it's where the servitors live, eat, sleep. It's their repair shop, their healing station, the training rooms. And we'll get upstairs here in the second one, and we'll walk out. This is one of the healing rooms here. So pretty cool effects, and these you're going to see, these runes you'll see a lot throughout. If you guys want to jump in and...
Well, yeah, actually, the whole idea was that the Dragons of the Outer Brood do not use magic that is anything like Nerathians use. So we thought, well, let's use some sort of symbolism system to represent their magic in effect. And that's why you see a lot of point-to-point stuff and a lot of linear and then there's also the pointing, but you guys can't see what I'm pointing at. The orb, the hexagons. What are they? I don't remember.
Decahedrons?
12-sided dice. Are energy sources that they use for storing energy, also for storing information. So, again, we wanted to try to represent a magic type that wasn't typical of Norath.
We definitely went with like the simple constellation magic
Right,
thing for magic.
right. Something readable, but still different.
All right, let's go out to there's the magic teleport area. And we'll see that teleport a lot. And let's see if I can not get lost. There's more of those energy
Not possible.
dodecahedrons, is that what they are?
I don't know. I lost track.
Whatever.
think so.
There's a lot of faces on them.
12-sided dice.
Yeah. So here we are out on, this is sort of the defensive area. And we've got all these cool energy.
Yeah, I love these cannons.
And so we'll check out the cannons here that are set up to defend the place. Pretty cool stuff.
And the theory is that this is the main reason why the Norathian dragons can't get themselves up here, because these cannons are just too devastating.
Cool. All right, so moving right along, let's go over to Harbinger's Cradle.
I have to say, it's always fun to see a whole bunch of corpses in my zones.
The Harbinger's Cradle is going to be one of the first-ish zones where you're going inside the Leviathan.
Yeah.
And here we are, kind of at the entry to the inside of the Leviathan. Ever wanted to know what one looks like? Well, here you go. I can tell you there were all these gross medical images that floated around for a few weeks.
Isn't that the fun part of your job?
Yeah.
It is for me.
And Jessica Wilkinson did this too. She did a great job. It really has that feel. She said, I wanted to make it as gross and icky as possible.
She could have tried harder.
And, it's pretty gross and icky.
And the idea is that this is formed by the dragons as a living space and working space inside the body of the dragon.
Yeah, they do it in a way that keeps the Leviathan alive, if not happy.
Happy's not part of their concern.
And we'll go to the nursery. Here's the nursery.
And to point out, these are not dragon eggs. These are because they wouldn't. These are other species eggs that they have decided. Yeah, there's corpses everywhere.
Sorry.
That's fine. They're not mine. That's good. But they're not dragon eggs. They're eggs of various what we call scale rot, which are the creations that they have made out of native life forms on their own world and other stuff they found on the way, for that matter.
Yeah, pretty much all the scale rot you see were created by these dragons to be their servants. They were modified from things native to their world.
Or, like I said, other stuff they found. They've
Yeah.
got a whole some Norathian stuff as well.
All right, since we're inside, let's go to Chamber of Puissance. And this is... Oh, no, wait, did I jump one? No.
Nope, you're right.
All right. We'll go to Chamber of Puissance. And Shannon Parnell did this one. And we're still inside the beast, and this is really the inside part.
This is the heart of the matter.
This is the heart
As it
of the
were.
matter, and if
I did that.
if I can find it, I'll show you the actual heart.
You can. There's
So-
a hot button for it right there.
Yeah. Nope, wrong one.
Don't do that.
Okay, here. There we go. So Shannon did some really cool stuff here to bring this area to life, and one of the things that he did was this masterful repurposing of tech that we used to use for water.
Yeah.
So what's old is new, and he did a really cool job with that.
And it's subtle too.
It's subtle too, and it won't give you, like a seizure. He talked a lot about how Shannon watches a lot of movies, and so he talked about Aliens and Prometheus and how much of an influence that was. But it was mostly just super, super clever, hard work essentially to get this to go. All right, let's move on to the next one. And here's another example of some real clever solution making. So there's all these arteries as you're getting closer and closer to the heart of the matter, if you will. And he did some repurposing here too, where we've got what is usually used for a waterfall, and that's how he created these arterial structures. So there's lots of them. It's pretty cool stuff.
And these buildings you see inside, they were made from growing and shaping the bones of the Leviathan.
Yeah.
To give them.
Either directly or just taking the bone and carving it, depending on the need.
Yeah.
All right. Which one was that? Okay, so here we go. Let's go look at the heart.
Misclick.
Wrong one.
Also wrong one.
Wrong one. That one.
Come on, old man.
I know. So this was a really clever thing that Shannon did here, getting this to work. We have, you can even hear it.
I'd say the game sounds are clearly on because that creeps me out.
So you can hear the heartbeat. Yeah, it's pretty cool. He did some really clever stuff making this work. We have a way to move stuff very simply, like for gears and wheels and that kind of stuff. But he did some really clever stuff here to make that actually happen. Boy, there's a lot of dead people around.
Yeah, well, again, it means I'm doing my job.
Cool. So high five, Shannon. All right, let's move on to the Gilded Spire.
So lore-wise, this is where the leadership of the... So you can find... The Covert is where the Scale Rod hang out. It's their main place. Chamber of Puissance sort of in between. Like, there is the dragon that mainly lives in there, but the Spire is where the servants to the great dragons and the actual dragons themselves hang out.
So Gilded Spire was done by Chris Merlot, who also gave us the anniversary tower this year. And this is her really cool stuff.
More bodies.
Yep, more bodies. Bodies
Welcome to Beta.
everywhere.
I love that statue, by the way. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's just a neat space. Chris described this as kind of an ode to iteration because we work kind of ahead, and it was built with a reasonable sized dragon in mind, and then we don't have reasonable sized dragons anymore.
Nope.
So she describes it as an ode to iteration. I think she must have built this 3 times, but she did something really cool. I'll show you in a minute here too, but. Let's see. Oh, maybe I did have them right. Here's a neat little interior effect. We were talking about the energy stuff earlier. This is just a real masterful overlay of effects here. So she's basically got four layers going here. There's a magic glyph layer, and there's 2 sets of star charts that move along, and there's the glowing orb protecting in the middle, and the power orbs. These power orbs are pretty much everywhere in the zone, so it's just a super cool effect, and doesn't affect the frame rate because she did a really clever. Chris did a really clever job with that. Then, last but not least, I want to show you one of my favorite things is, with towers, they tend to be super vertical. So you wind up with a lot of ascending stairways. And Chris he made the most of it. Really did.
Yeah, I do love the the floor here, too.
Yeah.
Gives you a serious sense of the depth of the tower.
Yeah. So that's just one of my favorite bits. Just great job.
I imagine that scale was a challenge for this, too, because everything is humongous.
Yes.
From a design perspective, zones like this that are built for humongous monsters can be a problem, because if you put normal-sized things in them, A, they look wrong, but B, it takes a lot of those little things to make a space feel full. But, of course, the stuff in this expansion is all quite large. So, but this has to be a space where it is made for the big dragons. So it is enormous.
All right, that's probably enough. I don't want to spoil all the surprises. So
I do.
I'm going to pass this off to my good friend Alan.
Me, I don't want it.
Actually, go pass off the space. But anyway, so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the features that are new to this expansion. Of course, you get new spells, upgrades to spells, upgrades to AAs, new items, new trade skills, of course. But one of the other new things is we are finally introducing the Dark Elf Ranger. So this ranger is not your goody two-shoes ranger. This ranger is about hunting. Hunting prey, finding prey, killing prey. This is about hating what you're going after and killing. This is about giving obeisance to Inaruk by killing. So the Dark Elf Rangers is new. The Dark Elf Ranger will be available at the beginning for progression servers as well as live servers as long as you own the expansion. Um, the other thing we are adding is the activated item keyring. The activated item keyring gets all the little things that also have an activated effect that aren't any of these other activated items. Things like the Mana Stone. A random belt with a click that you like. Most anything that doesn't fit in this will fit in this activated keyring, activated item keyring slot.
It's that kitchen drawer in there that catches all the other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Batteries.
Also, of course, there's the various things that you get if you buy some of the fancier editions of our expansion, like collectors and the friends and families. So this is one of the main teleport items. We showed you this in the covert, but is also available for you to have as a housing item. Of course, you also get the house painting. But we also included a house. And this is the facade of the house. And also this is one of the mounts. This is one of the smallest versions of the Leviathan. We call it the Leviathan calf. It is definitely a young'un.
Practically newborn.
Yep. And then I want to show you the inside of this house.
Nah.
Again, the art team did an awesome job. We sort of pulled a fast one on them. They gave us one a while ago. Then near the end, we were like, "Yeah, we'd like more." And then they gave us this awesome building. It's 2 floors with large sets of rooms. That's mirrored, so it's the same here on this other side. And then there's an actual elevator within your house that leads you up to the 2nd floor, of which this first area is a grand double story, and then leads into another set of rooms on this upper floor.
A shout out to Shannon for this and Logan Hales for doing the exterior.
You see like the stained glass shining through.
Yeah.
I feel like pulling a fast one on art is our favorite thing.
So that's a few of the things you can get in with the expansion. There's of course more things available. And next we'll talk a little bit about the storyline.
So in general, the storyline is fairly obvious. A giant force of dragons decided to take Norath. Well, initially they show up with a plan to talk to the native dragons, but when they find the first creatures they run into who give them guff are not dragons, their plans change. And so they end up deciding that they might as well just take this place and fix it, which would be bad for everybody actually living there. So in Hodstock, one of the main characters you talk to is Captain Taya, and Taya is in charge of basically all the forces gathered at Hodstock. Are you there?
Yep.
No. Okay. Yeah. The job is basically to secure the locals, provide as much defense as they can against the invaders, and if possible, push them back. And the players, of course, will be involved in all of those tasks. Scouting the enemies, defending against their possible assaults, though how aggressive they are depends on the NPC, really. And then eventually, theoretically, pushing them off the island. That's not an island. Off the hills? Yeah, close enough. Oh, can you is the viewer thing up there? You should show them that if you have it.
Yep, it's over here.
So I'm going to spill a little beans. The Leviathan is just too big to show in EQ. It is huge, and Art tried their very best to put it in the sky, and there's just no practical way to do it. So what they did, pretty much last minute for us, was build this viewer device that some magician on Norath, or maybe the dragons themselves, actually I don't know who made this, built it so that they can view the enemy. And it gives you a very false sense of scale for the size of the dragon, obviously, or the Leviathan, obviously. But it does let you know what it looks like, which is nice.
The buildings on the back are supposed to help with that.
But yeah, I mean, theoretically, like the zones we just visited are all at the top center of this thing.
Yeah.
Or two of them are.
Right.
Three of them
The,
are.
Three of
the
them are
landing is here, so the Tower of Eternity is here. Covert is sort of here, and Gilded Spire is this spire.
Yeah, so that gives you a sense of how humongous that thing's supposed to be. And those things on the side that look like little windows, those are, which I guess we didn't really show. I'll show later. Are the docking locations for smaller Leviathans who are tasked with delivering troops to the ground. So, and in theory, in reality, I guess this thing flew through who knows how much space to get to Norath. So there are devices on it that keep air in place and keep X-rays or whatever other stuff, radiation off of the locals, though maybe they also don't care that much about it. And they also, actually, you notice that some of their creatures, the scale rod, have been affected by the travel through space, and that was an experiment for them, and they were fine to have. What's next?
That'll show you the.
Oh yeah, well,
That'll show you the port,
well,
if you want to see the port or not.
Adam's driving. He can take us wherever he wants. I will
I'll do that
definitely.
in a bit.
I'll
This
definitely
is Tower
when
of Eternity.
we
but
talk
I'll
about
go back to
when we talk about raids, I can show it.
Okay.
So, because it's definitely part of the raid. And then this is, where are we? TOE.
Yep.
In TOE, it's more about, whereas on Hotstock Hills it's about defense and possible offense. Here it is all about offense because they need to find a way to breach the defenses of this place in order to drive them away. And as we pointed out before, there are cannons all over the place which prevent flyers from ever landing on this. So part of the task is dealing with those. As you just showed, Mokulin is the main point of contact for our adventurers here. And the idea is, and the main focus is for them is protecting the Druid Circle, which we showed earlier. I think we did anyway.
Yes.
And then once that is secure and they can bring forces up to the Theater of Eternity without having to fly there, which is very unpleasant, then they can worry about gathering their offenses and actually pushing forward into the covert and trying to stop the offensive.
And this is actually a mixed thing, so you had your Druid Rings and your Wizard Spires both in the same spot, basically.
For convenience.
Yep.
So, yeah, the job is to protect this place, or I believe even help build it. And then at some point push your way into, find a way, because the doors are blocked. You can't just walk into the what is effectively the fortress. So players will be forced to find another way in.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Don't look at me.
He's right. It's
Don't look at me.
basically about finding your way into the covert,
Kevin
which
was giving
then
me
allows
that.
you access to
Kevin was giving me that look,
Gilded Spire.
that look. It scares me. I really do love the scales, by the way. So you see it in TOE, you see these scales that have been propped up vertically. You can assume, and they were definitely not that way until the Norathians tried to push their way onto the Leviathan, and they're like, well, let's change things. And they moved these scales up to use as barriers because they can control the physicality of the Leviathan pretty well. So this creature is not normally, full of passageways, for example, and does not normally have defensive structures on him. But this is something that the gold dragons have done, sort of their specialty.
And this entire central area that looks bare is not safe because cannon fire lands there.
Well, yeah, cannons are versatile. You can turn them around and fire at the inside too. I imagine this was a hell of a challenge because I kind of know a little bit of how art works, and say, give me a destroyed building is kind of the same as build me a building, then break it. And it's not, it's an extra step. It's not exactly a simple thing to do. So asking for this huge place with all this destruction in it was, the usual, let's make art work for their money.
Not once did Shannon call you a bad name.
That's a lie.
Not once.
All right. Okay, I'll accept that as truth because I want to.
So next we'll talk a little bit about the raids.
Oh,
I'll start with the Hotstock.
I mean, I've got hotkeys over here if you want.
Oh, go ahead.
So if you guys want to switch to me, not yet. I've got to click a thing. Pretend I'm not zoning. It's going to take a second. So, Hotstock, trying to so the dragon sent down a creature they call the Herald. So, just so you understand, scale rot don't get names. Only the dragons get names because these lesser creatures are not worthy. They don't deserve it, and you can't give them a sense of purpose by giving them a name. They do, however, fight over titles. So this guy is called the Herald of the Outer Brood. If I can, run all the way over there, because some game designer made the zoning point too far away. Yeah, I heard your posts. I read your post. All the way over here are the Scale Rod Guardians. I forgot what I called these guys. Drudges, serfs. And this is the Herald of the Outer Brood. This guy's job was to come down here and plan a meeting between whoever's in charge of the Norathian dragons and the leaders of the brood. Turns out that the only people they get to talk to are you dumb mortals, and that does not make them happy. Basically, the way you start this event is you talk to them and you say, you're just going to have to wait. And it makes him very mad and tries to kill you, which is what happens in most of these events. I don't know if we want to actually run the raid or we're just going to talk about it a bit, but the idea here is he has access to commanders on the Leviathan and can aim cannon down on the battlefield, and he doesn't really care if his minions get killed, and frankly doesn't care if he gets killed because it's not his job is to win. There's a lot of, I'd say selflessness, but that's not the right word. There's a lot of, I don't have the right word, but they're willing to sacrifice themselves for their masters.
Zealotry.
That's a good word. So yeah, I don't know. We probably don't want to actually run these. We can pick and run one of these later if you want, but
Yeah. You can go ahead and show the next one, which is TOE.
TOE. I put my hot buttons out of order. Who knew? Zoning. For Theater of Eternity, it's more of a Adam.
So Theater of
You
Eternity.
talk about this one.
Yes. So Theater of Eternity, the general story is about, again, getting access to the rest of the Leviathan, which means stopping a dragon, one of the Aureate dragons who is sort of defending the area. But in order to stop him, you need to keep the ground troops from killing Ragefire, who's helping you kill, who's going to drive off the other dragon. And sort of helping his boss and the cannons is this guy.
Again, it doesn't get a name.
Yes.
He has a title and will do anything to defend it.
Right. And he will run a ritual which protects him, and then you have to counter the ritual by copying it in a very familiar red, blue, green, and yellow pattern.
What? Never heard of this.
And off to the left a little bit, left,
My left?
yep, is the row of cannons.
Oh, the cannons. I should have just known what you were going to talk about.
And there'll be some creatures the cannoneers here that fire the cannons at rage fire, and you have to keep rage fire safe.
Who is up here somewhere? Let me see if I can find him. Yeah, there he is. There's another dragon up here somewhere. Who should be impossible to miss. Where is he? I might have broke him. Trust me, there's a big dragon flying around up there that you could see and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody make a note. Alan broke a dragon. There he is.
So yeah, that dragon is keeping other Norathian dragons and most Norathians from landing. You're able to sneak in on those little griffins in singles, but an entire army just can't get by him. So we need to allow Ragefire to at least chase this dragon away.
And Ragefire has his only advantage is the fact that he is small and quick. Otherwise, this thing would just swallow him whole if he had the chance. So your job is to keep, whoa, hey guy, is to keep the big dragon from just eating Ragefire and or the cannons from shooting him down. So
Yep. And that's the basics of what you're doing here.
let's do Aureate Covert. So this event was actually really fun for me, primarily because Code did us a giant favor and added some new decals. Oh, I did. There's 2 clicks you have to do, dummy. As most of our raiders are aware, we do circles for decals, and so far that's been about it. However, now we have cones, and they are a joy for me. I get excited over the little things.
Yeah, it's the little things.
So for this is the main defensive platform for all of the cannons that deal with all of the flyers that are murdering anybody who tries to get up here. As you saw before, these guys shoot outward, and these guys can shoot wherever. The event is all about not getting hit by these things. I really want to start this one. I'm going to start this event real quick because the visuals are great. Pardon for my crazy driving. I should forewarn you. Flashing lights. So what happens is, nothing will happen if they don't attack me. Come get me. Thank you. These cannons will turn to the interior and try to murder you, and you have to avoid them. And the thing that makes them look so nice to me is, hurry up, come on, cannons, is the particle or the decal effects.
Will we do it in the first phase?
I don't know. I'm going to murder these guys and move on here. Hold on. Oh, I'm not. It's not set up. I can't.
The damage one on pad 2.
Nope, they're there. So this may not be a view that a lot of players get, but I really love the way these things look. So this cannon turns inward and fires a cone across, and that one is also turned inward and fires a cone across, and it gets this nice, I don't know, a little disco-y, I suppose, but I really like the way they look. So you have to defeat these 2 guys, who are the main. This guy is in charge of the defense of the air around here, and this guy shoots the cannons at people. And yeah, the event is mostly about avoiding getting zapped by these bad boys. It's hard to talk about all of the raid mechanics without talking about all the raid mechanics. So, but if you were to silence the cannons, which is the name of the event, I believe, it would make it a lot easier for Norathians to get on board and deal with the invaders. Let's do the covert real quick, or not the Harbinger's Cradle, so we can show you the bays. It's much the same story here, though there's a little bit more humor. What ends up happening is players get onto the bay, and their job is to defeat the defenders on the bay, defeat the chief mechanic so that he can't keep the Leviathans running, and that's about it. But the funny part is Hoshkar comes to help, which is great. You don't see a lot of the Norathian dragons on the ground here because they can't get up here. But once you've silenced the cannons, you can move on to the bays, and they can at least help a little bit. And still zoning.
I'm going to show this. This is what the transport Leviathans look like on my screen. So these are much bigger than the one you get as a mount, but
Failed
they
to
have
zone?
this little area where they would theoretically carry
My bad.
the other scale rot down to Norath.
I screwed up. We weren't zoning, so more waiting.
Um,
I goofed.
This is also, Kevin mentioned that there's more of those teleports because this is one of the possible teleport locations for the expansion is into this teleporter.
So here's where we learn a little bit about the society we're talking about here. This guy is the chief mechanic. His job is to, keep the Leviathans running. Currently none in the bay except for, where'd he go? Where's the baby? There he is. This immature Leviathan who is, really eager to help out but isn't prepped and doesn't know what he's doing. And you talk to this guy, and he decides when you, threaten him to just run. He's had enough. He is no longer interested in his job. He's willing to take the demotion. And the mechanics, they're not built for fighting. They're built for fixing, so they also flee. But what does happen here, and I'm going to fail this raid really fast because I'm just me, but you do get help from Hoshkar, who shows up to, well, first you see the boss from the second raid. Oh, nope, I failed immediately because I'm bad at this. There he is. This guy shows up to yell at you. Sorry, I reset because I'm only me. He shows up to yell at you. This is sort of embarrassing. This is the thing I work on all year and I can't remember how to do it right. He shows up to wonder where everybody went, why everyone's run away from these tiny creatures that all these pitiful Norathian dragons are afraid of. He brings in a new mechanic. It's like, look, you've been promoted. You deal with these guys. And then Engrith shows up, and everybody's like, what? This takes a few seconds to run out. So the boss shows up from the second fight, complains, brings in another mechanic. I have to kill these guys. Pardon me while I... All right, it's probably better if I just describe it because Engrith is messing with my...
I just wanted to aggro them to help.
Well, kill him then. Do your work. Okay, maybe showing off how a raid works is not the best idea I've ever had. This guy shows up to complain, gives some power to this Leviathan, and the Leviathan is excited to do something other than sit there and wait to become a Denult. So he attacks you, as do, more of these guys. Anyway, I'm just waiting for Hoshkar to show up because he's the only fun part of this. Hoshkar flies in. There he is. To lend a hand. Because he is equipped to deal with this immature Leviathan where you are not. But what he does when he arrives is decides it will be easier to fight in this space as a troll. Norathian dragons are pretty good at changing their forms. And then the Brood Architect shows back up and is very unhappy about that. It is, as far as he is concerned, the ultimate insult for a child of Vishan to change forms into some lesser creature. And so is very mad about it. But then, not mad enough to stay and fight, he just runs off. He's got other stuff to do. Look, guys, he's busy. I don't think we want to go through this whole fight, but it's just for me, the fun part of making a raid is to deliver some lore in the most either crude or hilarious way I can. Usually I go for crude, but this time I tried to be funny. Well, who knows if it worked. Do we want to show the Brood Architect in his lair, or do we want to bother?
No.
Okay. Just in case you're curious, that guy you just saw does have a raid in this zone. Back in the back in the hatchery that we saw before. So he does stuff like, turns creatures into other creatures and things like that. Let's try puissance. Let's see if I did it wrong again. I keep forgetting stuff. I'm old. Old man forgets things. So in the Chambers of Puissance, it's all about the heart, as you saw before. The way these dragons control the Leviathan, there are multiple ways, but one of the ways is they inject things into its bloodstream. They control it through its body, basically, through its own heart. And this guy here is the custodian of this heart. That heartbeat, I'm going to go somewhere where I can't hear it. I guess there's nowhere to go. His job is to, if they need more speed, need more compliance, whatever they need out of this thing, it is his job to make sure that these guys deliver the right magic, basically, to get it to do what they want. And your job, of course, is to not kill the heart, though that would have been one way to deal with it, but is to get rid of this guy so they can't manipulate the Leviathan directly anymore, at least not through chemical or magical means. And then the last thing, I'm just leaving because I can't take it anymore. That heartbeat is not a thing. The next thing you get to do is you got to go to the Spire and deal with the commanders of the forces. One is their warlord, and one is their high priest. We'll show you the warlord, and you've seen the high priest's room, the one with the golden statue in it, is where the high priest hangs out. The warlord, however, is the focus of the physical defenses. So he is the one, determining where forces go, controlling the Leviathan's movements, and doing all that. And he does that through these awesome pillars, which we didn't see in the art go through, but pillar structures in the room. I'm talking about a thing I want to show it to you, but I'm not there yet. Yeah, it controls the Leviathan, mostly its movements. I did it again. Okay. Try one more time. I tend to click immediately and then not get there. Tries to control it through he controls it through more forceful means, more direct means than the curator does by, pushing buttons on a control panel, basically. So this is the general. He is gigantic. This is me, and that's his feet. And these are the magical devices that he uses to control the creature. And I guess I'll tell this to people because hopefully it's not something you're going to see unless you do the raid. There's a mission. We'll let you figure out yourselves. There is a secret to how these devices work. There is, of course, magic embedded in these crystals and in these things on the wall over here and in this flooring. All of this is all about controlling the Leviathan. And this is the window to the outside, which, can't be open right now because annoying dragons from North would show up. Where are they? Well, you get help from the Norathian dragons in this event too. I'm probably not gonna go into details about it, but this guy is pretty terrifying. As we mentioned before, I think he's the biggest thing we've ever put next to. I did forget one. The Mechanic Guardian is bigger. I forgot about the guy. He came up recently. I did forget about him. He is bigger, but biggest biological creature, if we want to be, pedantic about it, is this guy. So I don't think we want to go too much more on raids. If you want to try something else.
Now, I just wanted to say a little bit about these pillars and the technology. One of the directions we gave the art team was the inverse of the saying. Am I still live? Sorry. Is the inverse of the saying, sufficiently advanced technology looks like magic. This is sufficiently advanced magic that looks like technology.
Yeah, we had this discussion when we did Arx Menace too. It's there. EQ is dead set against having technology. We don't want to have cybernetics or computers or anything like that. It's a challenge when you want to do, like Arx Menace they were supposed to be sort of the technical people of Magic. They're very precise, very careful, very direct. This is meant to be a different kind of Magic, but we also wanted to get the feel of sort of a superior power to what you might find on Norrath. So I really like these things. There's so much detail went into this zone. Congrats to your art team. You guys are great.
Okay.
Do you guys want to take some questions?
Yes.
No?
All right. After reviewing the chat, we have one question here. Can you speak more to the EverQuest Online Adventures connection for Hodstock Hills? Who's the EQOA fan? And how did you do research to get that info for EQOA for building the zone?
I am drawing a blank on her game name.
Oh, I don't know anybody's GM name.
Ziri?
Sure.
Yeah. So Ziri is the main proponent of bringing in EverQuest Online Adventures. She brought it in. She's tried a few times to bring it in, and this time she was successful. She was a GM at the time, I believe. We will hear more about that in the near future. But yeah, we ran the servers for a long time. It was definitely an interesting game. And it is canon, so we decided to go ahead and use it.
Yeah, I play tested that game. I actually wrote the manual for that game too. Just tooting my own horn. I know you guys want to know all that. Yeah, it was a great game, and like Adam says, the lore is canon, so why not use it? It's challenging to find a use for lore that happens at an entirely different time than your game, right? So this is what would happen if some of the spaces that were built for EQOA still existed and were still part of our game. So it was a great opportunity to bring that into the game.
Finding reference was a real challenge.
I bet.
Thank God for Google.
Yeah.
All right, let's take another one. Why does Hoshkar become a troll? Does that happen anywhere else?
I don't think so. I just decided that. One of those things. Trolls are big and strong. It's a good fighting form. I needed him to transform into something, and I don't think historically that dragon has turned into a mortal form that I am aware of. It's entirely possible I'm not aware of it because there is so much EQ lore in the universe that I don't know all of it. So I honestly just picked a form that I thought would make sense if you wanted to be in a fight. Troll seemed like a good choice. And I'm a little tired of ogres. We've done a lot of ogres lately.
Yeah.
So.
And there was also the basic decision that he was too big to be in there to fight as
Yeah.
his dragon form, so
Right. Yeah, it was more about
needed
which,
another.
halfling seemed like a poor decision. Nothing against halflings, a little against halflings, but it seems like you pick a fighting form, so you're going to pick ogre, troll, and personally, we've done a lot of ogres lately. I thought I'd not do that again. So it wasn't the lore decision; it was just a me decision.
Is there any backstory on the Leviathan itself? Is it a child of Vishon, or just a servant they took control of?
Yeah, it's a servant.
Yeah, and a lot of the scale rot, the Aureate dragons or the dragons in their original world created, the Leviathans are actually other natural creatures. They weren't children of Vishon, but they were natural, basically giant space Leviathans. They naturally fly in space. You can absolutely compare it to the typical space whale, but they are a reptile, not a whale.
Yeah, and you'll notice about all the scale rot, they all have an unusual number of limbs. The most disturbing for me is the observer, the eyeball with way too many wings, way too many eyeballs for that matter. Mm-hmm. The things that you see that have, there are some things that are here that are clearly adapted from Norathian stuff, like there are some my God, I've lost the name. The eyeball ones from regular Norath. Those guys have been co-opted. But anything with a weird number of limbs, well, that's the main characteristic. The things with a weird number of limbs were native to the planet where the Aureate dragons came from, and these guys have changed, which is why they call them scale rot. They have changed them into useful servants as part of their conquering of the planet.
Right. Their natural form
Mostly.
is 6 to 8 limbs for their planet.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's entirely possible that some of them only had 4, and the dragons said that wasn't enough. The idea is that these guys can bring changes to organic beings that might not normally happen.
Right. And, they captured Leviathans and modified them.
Right. Yeah, they don't normally come with cavities inside their bodies. Normally.
Okay, got another one.
Oh, good.
Trade skills in the Outer Brood? Question mark.
No. No,
I mean,
I'm kidding.
yes, they exist. They exist. The books were made by someone in the Outer Brood, so you will need a language to read their book since it was written by them. You will note that a lot of the times in this expansion, all the creatures are speaking in Elder Dragon, because that's the closest language basically created by Vishan, so it's the common language between the Aureate dragons and the Norathian dragons.
Though they've definitely diverged, but we didn't really. Yeah.
Cool. All right, we have one more question. Can you speak more to the limitation of putting the Leviathan in the sky?
Yeah, a lot.
Want to talk about all the things you tried? Because there was a lot.
Yeah, I can tell you all the things we tried. Well, there's, within the engine, there's a lot of things we have to do so that it's not a stop motion game. Meaning performance is an issue. So we have to try and do subtle tricks with the fog that help keep that performance level up, but still gives you the same play experience. There is the matter of clipping scale. If you really took the size of this thing in consideration, it's massive. So a lot of the things from the play space that you might see, like one of the things we played with was waving tail. We did a lot of playing around that.
Wings, too.
And wings, too, yeah. And the problem was they had to be of such scale that you only could see a tiny little bit of them, and they were so massive that you had no idea what they were.
Well, there's more than that, right? Because our models, at some point, you have to see the center of them or they disappear. You don't see this in game. It doesn't happen. But,
Yeah.
like, if this thing was 100 times bigger, the dragon was 100 times bigger than it was,
Yep.
at some point, you could look at it straight up, and then you'd go a little bit to the left, and it would disappear.
Yep.
Because it's no longer drawing it anymore.
Yep.
Just because it, I don't know why.
It's just the way that the rendering engine works.
So we
I mean,
had-
it tries, it's performance, so it
Yeah.
tries not to draw things it
that
doesn't
you
have
can't
to draw.
see. Right. And we also talked about, if those of you may remember when we had Castle Mechanotus floating through the sky in an event ages and ages ago, it looked okay because it wasn't as big as the Leviathan. And we made a little model of it, and we just poofed it across the sky, and it looked okay because it wasn't humongous. That doesn't work for this thing because it wouldn't look the right size. There's nothing we could do to make a tiny model and put it at the right distance or close enough or far away to make it still be visible and still look like it was big, because you only draw so far away.
Yep.
And scale and distance and I don't know, arty
Right.
things that I don't understand, just wouldn't allow us to put it in the sky in any way that you could see it, and it made sense to be as big as it actually was.
I can tell you that there was a lot of interest in trying, especially early on, in trying to make that work.
Yep.
And there were a couple people who just weren't going to give up. And we must, I mean on the art team.
No, I know
I
it's
mean,
easy for me not to give up because I don't have to do the work.
But
So-
it was just one of those things where, okay, we have exhausted every possibility. So it's just going to have to be a no.
Right, and then we forced one of the character artists to make us the viewing platform just so we'd have something to show that it was there.
Right.
It's a bummer because it's very easy for somebody like me to write on type on a piece of paper, say, make me a big thing that's so big you can't possibly show it in game, and then just hand it off to art and expect them to do it. I am kind of a jerk that way.
No, not at all. We do the same thing. And, the problem is you get influenced by other media,
Yeah.
and it doesn't translate to this particular medium.
Right. And, even if we tried to make a tiny one, I even tried a few things, and you could just, with the parallax, you could tell that it was a tiny thing that was only 5,000 feet away.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of, if you remember the Void with Vishon in it, she does not look big enough. Right? She is supposed to be huge and far away, but she just looks like she's dragon size. Because your point of reference is the size of a dragon.
Yep.
You don't imagine that she is enormous, because she's bigger than Leviathan by a couple of degrees. And she doesn't look that big in Void, right? Because we, as people, expect her to be a dragon. And so you look at it and go, well, that's a dragon. And it doesn't matter where she is or how big the model is. She just looks like a dragon that is dragon distance away, right? And there was no overcoming that with Leviathan because there's no frame of reference. There's nothing. And again, with the limitations of how far we can draw a thing and how big it is before it just disappears, we just couldn't do it. Though I loved the iterations of trying to make a wing, because we wanted to put a wing outside some of these buildings that would go whoop whoop, and that was insane. But your artists would not stop trying.
No,
So I really
were
appreciate
into
that.
it. They were
I
into
really
it.
do. It's nice to give them a challenge and have them
Yeah.
actually come through. But when you
There
make
might
it
have been-
impossible,
There might have been some people cursing you that time, but
you know what? They can come to my house and curse me. I know I deserve it. It's fine.
And speaking of Vishon, some of the iconography around the Gilded Spire and other places are Vishon, their version of Vishon, and their version of Vishon has 4 wings like them because she's their god.
Right.
So, just as in many things, their image of her has 4 wings.
yeah, Jessica did a neat job on that.
Yeah, that's a really. I don't know if you'd show Adam's screen, but that's a really nice
Yeah.
flag. So there's some of the. I'm always impressed with the art you guys put out, but and I'm not excluding the character art team, by the way. These models are amazing.
Yep.
It's again, like I keep saying, it's easy for me to write on a piece of paper, looks like this, and then just pass it off and expect to come back looking like I wrote. And when it does, I'm like, how did you manage that? Because I asked for more than I was expecting to get, and then you get dragons that look like this, or like some of the walls in Gilded Spire, some of the just subtle movements and activities. It's all amazing. I'm super
Yeah, there's quite a
impressed.
few new character models this year.
Yeah, but that's our fun. That's the fun time.
Right. And we even made a version of the Leviathan with the city on it. But like we said, everything we tried, it just didn't look big.
Yeah.
It looked this small. So we went with the viewing platform.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Now, the official launch date of the Outer Brood is on December 3rd, so that's coming up quick. That means if you haven't already, go ahead and pre-order, because if you do pre-order, you still have the chance to get the exclusive pre-order weapon ornament. I think it's called the Scale Wrought Azure weapon ornament.
Yes.
And then you can head to our website to check it out more on the landing page. But last but not least, we do have some new additions to the swag store that are available, and I will be showing those off right here. So first off, we have a Outer Brood poster. Very cool poster. It's like a matte feel to it. Very good quality paper. Additionally, we have just a classic EverQuest beanie for those cold nights. I know those are coming up quick. And then we have 2 different mouse pads. I know you guys love the mouse pads. They are really awesome quality. We have the more of the square version right here, all based on the beautiful key art that we have this year. And then, of course, the big giant mouse pad that we have. So perfect.
It's bigger than my
Beautiful
desk.
key art this year, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really nice.
So again, pre-order if you haven't already. We definitely look forward to seeing you all in Norath, and thanks again to you guys up here for taking your time, and we appreciate all of you as players. And have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.